All right, let's dive straight in. Hi, I'm Hazel from londonguidedwalks.co.uk. Today I'm taking you into a specific moment in history that transformed Britain's post-war soundtrack, the 1951 Festival of Britain. We so often reduce history to dates and treaties, but some of the most profound changes happened through music, architecture, and everyday culture. In this explainer, I'll show you how one monumental festival became a catalyst for modern British music, helping move Britain from the shadows of war into a vibrant, diverse future. Here's what we're going to cover. Section 1 is a tonic for the nation. Section 2, taking music nationwide. Section 3 will cover the Cold War opera controversies. Section 4, the arrival of new sounds. And finally, looking at a lasting musical legacy. So let's jump into section 1, a tonic for the nation. To feel why this music mattered so much, you and I need to picture the era. It is 1951. Britain is so desperate for optimism. The country is still crawling out from the doom, austerity, and physical destruction of the Second World War. London bears heavy bomb scars, rationing is still strict, and daily life is dominated by shortage and restraint. Against that grim reality, the Festival of Britain offered a complete pivot towards optimism. On the South Bank, futuristic architecture celebrated both past achievements and future ambitions. Austerity was the problem, and the festival was designed as the cure. The organisers' overarching objective was officially described as providing a tonic for the nation. Their mission was to uplift, unite, and heal the country through culture. The clearest physical embodiment of this tonic was the newly built Royal Festival Hall. Its architecture was strikingly forward-thinking. Engineers created a box-within-a-box acoustic design specifically to block out the noise of trains rumbling over the nearby bridge into Charing Cross Station, turning the hall into a pristine sanctuary for classical and choral music. The opening night of the Royal Festival Hall became an exercise in national myth-making. In the audience were King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, later to become known as the Queen Mother. The political leadership included Prime Minister Clement Attlee and Herbert Morrison, the festival's chief champion, and even Winston Churchill, then leader of the Conservative opposition and a vocal critic of the festival, yet still in attendance with his wife. Add in Hollywood royalty such as Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier, and it was essentially Britain's own Oscars night of 1951. If this really was to be a national tonic, it couldn't be limited to one concert hall in London. Herbert Morrison was adamant. The festival must not become an elitist party. It had to grow into a nationwide choral and musical movement that ordinary people could join. One of the most charming, organic ways this happened took place on the festival grounds themselves. Visitors could buy inexpensive festival song booklets. Loudspeakers across the South Bank would strike up familiar tunes, and suddenly you'd have impromptu mass sing-alongs of traditional songs like Greensleeves. Imagine standing in the middle of a 1,000-strong crowd, voices rising together, everyone sharing that endorphin rush. It was participatory healing on a grand scale. But the musical movement quickly spread beyond London, thanks above all to the extraordinary voyage of HMS Campania. In the spring of 1951, the government took a decommissioned Second World War aircraft carrier, painted it entirely white, draped it in fairy lights and set it out from Southampton. Over the summer, it toured 10 UK ports, bringing full orchestras and live BBC radio broadcasts directly to coastal towns. By autumn, it finished its journey in Glasgow, complete with pipe bands performing on the flight deck. The real secret of Campania's success came down to a single figure: 2 shillings. For that highly affordable ticket price, working-class audiences could step aboard, form a wallship, listen to world-class music, and even have a drink at the onboard Nelson Bar. It was a deliberate act of cultural democratisation. Of course, Whenever you have a huge state-sponsored art programme, things don't always go smoothly. The festival's classical music plans collided head-on with Cold War anxieties. The Arts Council ran an opera competition, judged completely anonymously. When the judges finally opened the envelope to reveal the 4 winners, they discovered, an unexpected problem. The successful composers were German, Austrian, Australian, and one British composer, Alan Bush. The issue? Bush was a known member of the Communist Party and a Soviet sympathiser, and he was under MI5 observation as a suspected spy. The result was drastic. Not a single one of the winning operas was performed at the festival. To understand why organisers panicked, you have to look at the political tightrope of 1951. The governing Labour Party promoted the festival as a unifying celebration of British arts and working-class roots. The Conservative opposition attacked it as an expensive socialist showcase. To stage Alan Bush's working-class opera Wat Tyler in the middle of the Cold War would have handed the opposition an enormous propaganda gift. So the organisers quietly shelved it. The opera commissions were chaotic in other ways too. An opera about Admiral Nelson just simply wasn't finished in time. Another work, by a composer suffering from severe shell shock, was received so brutally by critics that he abandoned music altogether and spent the rest of his life growing carnations in Kent. You could hardly script it. As for Alan Bush, well, there's an ironic twist. His unperformed opera, Wat Tyler, finally received its grand premiere 3 years later in East Berlin, and it was hailed as a working-class triumph. While the official classical programme tangled itself in Cold War politics and unfinished scores, something far more vibrant was emerging from below. This is where the festival truly reshaped the future, through radical new sounds brought by the Windrush generation and American GIs. Take the Festival of Britain Calypso by Trinidadian artist Lord Kitchener. In it, he welcomes people from everywhere, celebrating Britain and inviting them to the festival. There were plenty of officially commissioned marches for brass bands, but it was Kitchener's Calypso that made the much-loved, if unofficial, anthem of the festival. The crucial point is how this Caribbean musical presence permanently altered British culture. Bandleader Edmundo Ross created a hugely popular Latin big band version of Kitchener's song. Even more groundbreaking was the arrival of the Trinidad All-Steel Percussion Orchestra playing reconditioned oil drums. Most Britons had never heard anything like the shimmering, echoing sound of the steel pans drifting across the Thames. Their subsequent tour of the UK planted cultural seeds that would help lead, years later, to the creation of the Notting Hill Carnival. You also can't talk about the festival's new sounds without mentioning the Battersea Pleasure Gardens. If the South Bank embodied high culture, Battersea was sheer fun. Picture an illuminated dance pavilion draped in fairy lights, thousands of people twirling around the floor in bright new nylon fashions. Big bands played jazz inspired by American GIs, smooth crooners such as Nat King Cole filled the air, and the cutting-edge sound of Les Paul's electric guitar added a thrilling new texture, all under the watch of a giant Guinness clock chiming on the hour. The atmosphere was electric. So what happens when the fairy lights are packed away and political fashions change? What actually survives? In the immediate aftermath, the new Conservative government of Winston Churchill, elected in late 1951, ordered most of the South Bank site to be demolished. But you can't bulldoze an idea. By 1966, the Caribbean musical influences introduced at the festival had helped blossom into the first Notting Hill Carnival. If you walk through London today, you can still see physical survivals of their extraordinary summer. The Royal Festival Hall still stands, the only main exhibition building from the South Bank site to survive. You can also spot the Codestone Westminster Lion, painted red for the festival and now guarding Westminster Bridge. But the most important legacy isn't made of brick or stone, it's the enduring national appetite for live musical festivals, diverse genres, and communal celebration that was forged in 1951. Which leaves you with one question. If you could step into a time machine and visit the South Bank in the summer of 1951, Which sound would you follow first? Would you head for the pristine acoustics of the Royal Festival Hall, join a mass choral sing-along with a song booklet in hand, or follow the pulsing rhythms of the first steel bands echoing over the Thames? Thanks for spending some time with me. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll see you on the next explainer. But if you want to know more about the Festival of Britain, then join us on a special Festival Britain walking tour. All information available on our website, londonguidedwalks.co.uk.